I trust that you've had a good week, that you have applied something you learned last week. And let me ask, does anybody want to tell us if they calculated their ROI and what they found? For those who were in the building last week or those who caught up online. Does anybody want to share what they calculated and found? Ama, it was too shocking for all of us. Anyone? Going once? Going twice? When you calculated your ROI, what did you find? Or who, and did anybody understand ROI for the first time? And what did it do for you? Silence in the house. Somebody talk to me. Was it so shocking? Was it so mind blowing? Let me ask T-Bags. Let me put you on the spot. Okay, let me read that. Oh, I hope you had a good time with family, Dorothy. All right. So last week was saying that return on investment is really how much we get after we have sold, and it allows us to know um, whether we're profitable and sustainable or not. So for those of us who didn't catch up, let us catch up on the YouTube channel. The African MSME Collective YouTube channel is where we put it, and that would be a very interesting conversation to have. So for me, it was a time to really recalibrate and look at our costs, what we charge for certain things, what I charge personally for some of my products. And I realized my ROI was very low. So I've actually been deliberately um, reorganizing. And yeah, I think I've seen some cost increases in certain places or product adjustments. So the bundle was very big. We have reduced bundles in certain places just to make sure that it is working. So today we're talking about knowing our break-even point, and I think this will be an equally interesting conversation because for many of us, we don't even figure that this is a thing. It took me a while, being in business for a while, to really begin to figure out my break-even point. So karibuni to a very interesting conversation. Now, this has been a running question we've been asking ourselves, which outreach activity has been taking the most of our income? And I want us to keep these things front of mind because specifically against our marketing activities, all the events we attend, all the networking we do, the digital marketing we do, any other above the line marketing we do, we need to consistently calculate its return. That calculation is also useful to today's conversation because all these costs feed into knowing what our break-even point is. So in this space, I keep these questions here just because we need to keep them front and center. And just look at the last one is what I've really been thinking about this week. What financial decision would improve my outreach immediately? So does it mean if I know what my ROI is, I'd plan my outreaches better? And outreach is any marketing activity we do, all right? Or any activity we do that will put our business in a positive light. So that's what I want us to keep front and center. So this, you'll see this, you have seen this particular set of questions over the last couple of weeks, and it's because of that. But today, we're looking at costings, knowing our break-even point, because we're in the series that says know your numbers, all right? So now, by the end of it, we'll understand the minimum sales required to cover our costs. We'll have answered the question, how much do we need to sell to be profitable? We will have looked at a break-even calculator, and I trust that each of you will understand your break-even point or be able to calculate it, how it influences your pricing, how it supports your decision making, and how to use it for sustainable growth. Now, why is break-even important? Many of us are visible, highly visible. We are out there, we're making inroads, excuse me, we look like all is well, but for some of us, all is not well. Hey, all is not well. And what we are doing is we are continuously running business without knowing which numbers matter. And without the knowledge of our break even point, what we are doing to ourselves is we are hamstringing ourselves. This knowledge makes pricing easier. Or you know your break even, you can set clear targets, you can track your cash flows, and you can assess profitability. But in the absence of that, all those things are now on the reverse. You'll be pricing and wondering, why aren't I making money? Hmm? You'll be looking at growth and it will seem like a huge elephant, which could probably be easier if you are able to do it differently. So this is why we're pushing these break-even numbers. This is why we're pushing them. Because at the end of the day, what we're building in this community is profitable businesses that are transgenerational. So they go not just one generation. We're hoping that we can build businesses that will go across multiple generations. So if you don't know your numbers, this is why we have a lot of challenges in our businesses. Again, when you understand your break even point, it gives you a clear picture of what you need to be sustainable, how much you must sell every month, how much you must make every week, how much you must make in the year to remain profitable. It also helps you understand when you want to grow and you figured out your growth trajectory and you know you need to pump in or you need to make 20 million in the coming year. It helps you come back and calculate to make that 20 million, where will we be at cost and how will we make our margins from there. So break even is it's a multidimensional number that we must understand, but the majority of us do not actually track it. So that's what we're talking about today. All right. Break even is not a profit target or growth target, a sales forecast, a guarantee of success, or a one-time calculation. Like, let me give an example. This year, what was the fuel price when we started? What is it today? Right? So on a monthly, because for those of us in Kenya, we know that fuel prices change on the 15th. So if there's going to be a hike or a dip, it will be announced on the 14th. So 1 month, maybe you are breaking if your margins are small, you are able to make your extra 10 shillings on each piece because the fuel price stabilized. Do you remember the day it went from 195 to 214? That was a massive jump. And that 20 shillings a liter had an impact of every single product you made. If you looked at what happened in the shops, for where the prices remained stable, sometimes the product weight went down or the quality was hampered because they needed to keep within their margins and their numbers. So it's not a one-time calculation. It's something that you will find you will calculate more than once because it is the point at which total income equals total costs. At this point, the business expenses are covered. There is no profit, there is no loss, but you have met expenses. So let me give an example. Let's say for us who are in the service business, we have rent, we have communication, we have salaries, we have electricity, we have utilities, let me call them utilities, and then we have transport. So if our break-even point was calculated on a mileage basis with the current fuel prices, then we may have a loss in our transport calculation, which will, depending on how large our margins, will affect what our profit would be. But we need to calculate all these things to know this is my base price. You know, when you're selling product, you know your cost of goods sold, and then you add your variable costs to know what is the minimum you can make. So some of us we are pegging ourselves on market pricing, which is very good, but who set that market price and does it work for you based on the value you deliver and on the income you need to generate? So anything earned after break even contributes to profit. But until you break even, and remember we had said that we calculate profit on every sale, right? So that means we have to get to the point where in advance we have kind of figured out what these numbers are. It helps answer the question, how much do I need to sell before I start making money? And this could either be in costs of items or in number of items. I like to look at break even in terms of number of items. So for every cost, I have a break even number. For every sales conversation book, we have a break even number. When you publish your books, you know it cost you this to write, it cost you this to get edited, it cost you that to get it printed. All those together give you X as your base price. Then you add your profit margin and you know what your sales price is. At that sales price, you have to know how many books you must sell to have covered all those costs. So in your first likely 100 or 200 books, you have not yet broken even. So this is what we are working to calculate so that you know from this point on, everything on top of the cost price of the product is profit. All right. So a few things you must understand. And remember that the tagline for the month is know your numbers, grow with intention. Right? So that's what we've been doing this month. So know your costs. Your costs are in two categories. And I loved how we've talked about them over and over through the month. They're the fixed cost which you pay whether you make a sale or 100. So let's say you've got a production facility, you have rent, you have salaries, you've got internet, phones, data. So that's what I call communication. You've got insurance, you've got software subscriptions, you have licenses. All those are your fixed costs. Whether or not you run, those costs must be paid. All right, and those we understand well. Then you have your variable costs, which change based on production or sales. So variable costs could be raw materials, packaging, delivery, commissions, production costs. Variable costs are also a lot easier to see when you're in the product side. But your variable costs could also be things like your travel cost. Maybe if you're like those of us who have built, we have home offices, so then we don't travel all the time, so we don't necessarily have a monthly travel cost, as opposed to somebody who's going to the office every day. So for you, it could be a travel, transport and delivery cost. That's in your variable cost, right? The more you sell, the more the cost increase. So you cannot calculate break even accurately if you do not understand your costs. Remember, your fixed costs are, whether you sell or not, those costs are there. They're running costs, they must be met. In variable costs, the cost depends on your sales, your production, so you have to calculate it every time, which means your variable costs could change on a monthly basis. And that's the thing we must all remember. Your variable costs could change on a monthly basis. So are you tracking these things? Where do you keep your costs? How do you know what you spent today? How do you know how much you paid out yesterday? We're coming to the end of the month. We're all submitting tax returns. Have you looked at what you spent on last month and where are you with that particular thing? It is important to know these costs because if we cannot pin them down, then we cannot in any way or form figure out what our break-even point would be. All right, so number 2, understand contribution. Not every shilling of revenue is equal to profit. No. After you pay off your direct costs and then your delivery services or the amount remaining covers your fixed or your variable costs. So the first thing you do when you get your money, you pay your fixed costs. Whatever is left, you cover variable costs. And each of those is a contribution. So every product contributes to fixed cost and contributes to variable costs. And it's only after those two have been met do you get the contribution to profit. So it is in sequence. If you don't make enough to cover your fixed and your variables, you are not in profit. So that place where fixed and variables are fully covered is what we're working to get. So for example, your selling price is 5,000, your variable cost is 2,000, so the contribution to your fixed cost is 3,000. So in this case, we have not broken even because once the fixed costs are covered, that's the only way we can go into profit. Now, when you look at it with this simplicity, you begin to realize for many of us, we are calculating certain things and not others. And that's okay because we did not know better before today, and that's fine. For some of us, we have known, but we have thought, it's too much work, it doesn't matter. If we are going to go to profitability, which is the intention of this space, then we must be able to track end to end. And that's what we're looking at. So then, once we have those elements and the contributions down, then we calculate our break-even point. BEP is fixed costs divided by contribution per unit. So our fixed costs here are 60,000, right? Our selling price is 5,000. Our variable cost is 2,000. The contribution is 3,000. So that's what we're looking for, right? So break even is the 60,000, which is a fixed cost, by the contribution to the fixed cost, which is 20 units. So they have to sell 20 units. This is one way of calculating it. Another way that could be simpler for most of us, especially in small business, we will put our fixed costs together, we'll add our variable costs, and then we will divide it by the sales price. That's another simpler way to do it than this. So let's say, sorry, something is distracting me here. So what we're trying to do is understand how much we must sell to make sure we break even. All right. When we calculate it based on contribution, then we know that whatever happens, this is the number of units we must sell. So I like, and if I actually, I was looking at what the next slide says. I forgot to put in that particular sheet. The other way I like to calculate it is beyond when I have all my costs together, then I calculate it from that place, which gives me, it may give me a bigger number I have to sell, but that's a safer option. What do I mean? So we see here our fixed costs are 60K, sorry. And our variable costs are 2,000, right? Oops. So that's 62,000. What is this doing for me? All right. So I know at any given time, the cost I'm covering, let's say that that's the cost of producing a couple of units, is it's 62,000. So I have all my costs together, right? These are costs. Remember, I've not put a profit margin. Here we're not putting the profit margin yet. So if every product, let's say, so even just given with this one, the sales price is 5,000. So I could also divide it by 5,000 and know I need to sell a minimum of 13 units. That's if I go with just, this is the other method I'm talking about, the simpler one, without having to calculate your contribution. But you can see, if I go with a simpler method, I am short a couple of units. I may be short 7 units. So at the end of it, I will be struggling to understand where my cash went. So I've always used this one of just combining the fixed costs and the variable cost and then dividing by the sales price. But when we look at the two elements, there is a short of 7 units. So when you get to the end of the month, you're like, what happened? It is because we used the wrong number to calculate our break-even point. Because what we're using on every product, we are working to figure out from the place of contribution. When you calculate it this way, it gives you a higher number of sales, so it protects you from unexpected losses. When you calculate it off sales price and then say you give a couple of people discounts, do you see how then your calculation on the number of units then gets you in trouble? Because when we are calculating it off sales price, we need to have 30. We say we need 13 units to break even. And so then unit number 14, we give somebody a discount, but we have not quite covered, reached our break-even point. So you take your selling price, remove your variable cost, that gives you the contribution to fixed costs, and that is what you use to divide your fixed costs with. You use that contribution, you divide your fixed costs by that to get your break-even point. That way, then you know Every month. So, for this month, based on what our variable costs are, we need to sell 20 units. Now, you could have a shift in your variable cost for it to go up. So next month, your contribution will mean you need to sell multiple units. Now, how we do this math is if we're working with financial softwares, you can always key in. Once you've keyed in your cost, it can automatically give you. You will ask it to give you a break-even point, and it will do it for you. That's why systems and structures help, because we're able to calculate those things. At the end of the day, what we need to know is every month, how many units do we need to sell? We could even do this on an annual basis. Sometimes what I tell people to do, you see, when you're working out your targets, you're looking at desired revenue, cost per unit, and then you divide that revenue by the cost per unit, and then you get your targets. So then it lets you know that these are the targets for the month, right? But this is the break-even point. So if the numbers are different, I would go with my break-even numbers, because that is the number I need to make to at least match my revenue with my costs. Our goal is to ensure we're not making losses. Do losses happen? Yes, but let them not happen because we haven't calculated right. So kama tuko pamoja, let me put a BEP. Let me see a BEP in the chat. If you're with me, let me see a BEP in the chat. Let me see a BEP in the chat. If we're not together, ask a question. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right. Thank you. Good to see that we're together. Okay. So, why is BEP important? It helps in decision making. It answers questions related to different things. For instance, for pricing, does the current price support the business? When we are looking at your cost, you're seeing the contribution on the current price is 1,000 shillings. So we're having to sell so much more to get there. Is the current price working? It also tells you quite quickly how much you must sell each month to break even. So then if our BEP is 20, our target should be to sell 30 so that we're in profit, right? And then it also affects our marketing decisions. How much promotion do we need to do? How much visibility do we need to reach our target audience? Now, marketing is one of those costs that is absolutely variable. Because let's say you've been doing digital, and you realize you need to have more contact, hand-to-hand contact with your suppliers, and you begin to take tables at trade fairs, at conferences. Of course, that will increase your cost that month. And that's a direct marketing cost. The cost of the table, the cost of the extra product if you have to make, the cost of the person at that table, and if you have to buy their meals, pay their transport, give them airtime. Remember that consolidated cost we put together for when we're doing trade fairs? All that is a marketing cost. So then the month you do a trade fair, your BEP, your BEP is higher because your marketing cost has varied. Marketing is one of those costs that is hyper variable, because then you could do that and you have too many orders to keep to the next month, your marketing cost is lower. We say you don't calculate it once, you keep an eye on it. Sometimes you can do it every quarter. Some companies do it every month because the elements that go in shift a lot. So depending on you, you need to at least calculate it once a month, but you could do it quarterly if your sales are not, if your production isn't that much. It also impacts our growth decisions. Can we afford to expand? Remember, when you're generating income, you need to be putting money aside for expansion. Or you need to be generating enough business such that your turnover is good enough if you're going to go and get credit to expand. So your break-even point will guide you and let you know here, it is not yet time. It also allows you to assess your risk and see how much room you have for losses. And many of us don't do our risk assessment because they're like, but biashara ni mzuri, business is good. It's always important to keep an eye on your risk side, because what happens if you have a delay in production? What happens if a new entrant in the market comes and gives a rock bottom price with similar packaging size and similar quality? What happens if, like, I'll give an example. The events industry, there are four companies that have been at the top who have always served the corporates and top government functions. And then a few years ago, they built an event facility at State House. So they automatically, their domes are no longer going to State House for events. So now those domes come back into the general market. And because these guys are big and they have muscle, they're able to give lower prices. Guess who suffered? The planners and the tent people closer to the bottom of the pyramid. Because if you are doing, actually, the guys in the middle are the ones who suffer the most. If you're doing high-end events, now those high-end guys have a cheaper plug. Same quality, greater efficiency because they're bigger and they've got more trucks and they're bigger teams. So they come into the market and the mid-tier to top of the market in targeting certain segments of the population were in trouble. I remember a friend of mine saying it is so hard to get work. She used to have 5 to 6 events a weekend setups. She was down to 3 because the prices her clients were getting from these big four, she could not match without making a loss. So break even transformed decision making from guesswork to planning. She began to now see where must she focus. So all she did is she niched down to a set of her community who would never bother to look for somebody else. They were comfortable, they were safe with her. And then she worked to get more work from that community. But for 2.5 months, they were shown dust. And that's risk management. Because you're at the point of what you have to consistently look who else around you is doing what. In our industry, we have to consistently look for who to partner with. There are things we can do, but we're better if we do them in consolidation, because the current language of the world is collaboration. So our risk assessment is who has the capacity to outstrip us, what is it they're doing, are they targeting the same audience we're looking at, how much room do we have to make losses? And because we do not want to make losses, we look for partnerships. And the partnerships, in certain places, we're knowledge partners. In certain places, we are peers coming to execute projects together. In other places, you come in as a consultant. But what it helps you do, it helps you figure out where the risks and how do we mitigate them, because you're looking at your numbers consistently. Remember, we've talked about marketing, the budgets for marketing, we've talked about pricing, we've talked about ROI. So break even provides that destination. We are going there. We must sell 12 units a month, 20. We must sell 1,000 units a month. And then now, under that umbrella of that number, marketing happens. You re-look at your prices and you determine what your return on investment must be and how to attain it. All right. So this is a number that is a guiding number. Even as we're talking about it towards the end of the conversation, it is a guiding number, because once you have that number right, then it affects everything. For instance, let's say what are we making? Let's say we're doing a lotion, and our cost tells us that to break even, we must sell 1,000 units. This helps us see, do we have the capacity to actually produce and offload those in the month or in whatever period you're looking at, let's say in the quarter, right? So that if it's a quarter, it means we're offloading 333 every month, which brings it down to per day. So let me show you something. This is how you do it. So we're doing 1,000 in the quarter. So that's divided by 3. So it's 333.33 recurring per month. And then you divide that by, let's say our shop is open for 26 days. So we need to move 12 pieces a day. That is the break-even number we have. So this now guides how we market, how we sell, who we deliver to. Then even as we're delivering, we're watching. I'm delivering to Dr. Mbithe, to Dorothy, to Joe, to Abraham. Abraham is offloads 12 units every 6 days. So maybe I would give him more because if he's offloading 12 units every 6 days, then he's a good market to be able to give more. So you go and you look at every sales distribution network that you have. Which one do you give more? Which one do you give less of? So your break-even point is going to influence your decision making because you will want to be able to turn it around and remain profitable. Minimum costs met. Very, very minimum costs met. So when you look at it like that, it affects everything. But do we have that number? And when we look at what we need to make, which is how we set our targets, it must filter back to our break-even point. Because if we need to make an amount of money that is beyond our capacity to sell, then the break-even point shows you where you must be. So it's not a random number. Even when I used to do business, I randomized it for a long time, but the day I really figured out its value, then we honed in. So what did it do for us? Even for our projects, every project was priced in such a way that we need to make X every month to cover Y costs. So our price floor is this. It contributed to our costing structure, our pricing structure, our billing structure. Because when we're in the events world, we did 16% of the budget. Let's say when we'll be doing longer projects, we'll be doing 6 months projects. We'd say 16% of the budget or 1.2 million, whichever is higher. Why? We had done the math. We knew that our running cost in the 6 months is X. We needed to make that X. And then we'd also negotiate to gain additional income. We would negotiate for commissions on ticket sales. So this 1.2 is running costs. So our additional income came from ticket sales. We negotiated for a 10% commission on ticket sales, and then we gave the teams 4.6% or 4.5%, I think. So for every ticket they sold, they got either 4.5 or 5%. So here I am sharing my profit, but they're doing work I will not do. So in that calcul, that's now having known this is what we must make, we found multiple ways of making it in the same in this job. So the job needed to deliver X per month so that we are viable, plus enough for us to keep going. So what would we do when we're running? We run lean. So that in the 1.2 million, we're able to, by savings on our end, have income running for 3 months as our margin. So you see how your break-even point works? You know that this is what you need, this is what you need to run per month, and then you work everything to go that way. Which meant there is no job we did that went at a loss, except the one day I miscalculated, I put a formula wrong and I missed 100,000 shillings. I saw it much later in the process. We were not at a point where we could negotiate because we knew we had maxed out client. So what we do in that instance, we went back to our suppliers, renegotiated a couple of costs, were able to recover some of that money so that we brought the loss down. That is what knowing your numbers will do for you. All right. So what happens after we move from there? Once we've calculated it, it is not the goal. It is a decision-making tool. So then it allows us to focus on the things we must do to get there. It helps us focus on building reserves. We know what reserves we need. It helps us improve profitability because we are consistently looking at the numbers and ensuring that we are not making losses just because of our pricing. It helps us focus on what are our growth areas, what are the systems we need, and what capacity must we expand into. Because healthy businesses move beyond survival and towards sustainability when we're able to track our numbers. So it doesn't matter that you have not started your business. For those of you who have not started, it is if you're even better off because you start on the right footing. It also allows you to understand that the pricing you're putting out there is right. And it is right for you. So let's say you price and you realize I have been charging my clients 100 shillings, I should be at 250. When you move your price up, it helps you calculate your units, right? But it also tells you that there is a portion of your audience you may lose, your customers, if they're unable to move with you. Now, you could choose to come to a little bit lower or grow it progressively so you grow them with you, but understand that you should not carry losses just to keep a customer. Maybe you need to do a different set of marketing and find a different market segment who will buy your product. That is why we say break-even point is a decision-making tool. It tells you whether or not your product is profitable, whether you can sustain at that level, and the shifts you need to make. So reinvesting in growth here is what I mean about reorganizing your clients. So then you know, these are the people I want, these are the people I'm serving, these are the people I want. How do we bridge the gap? Or can we grow these people and figure it out? So let me give you another example. Remember, we never used to have very small blue bands and prestiges and all those things. Everything was usually about 250 grams and above. Then about maybe 15 years ago, what happened? They designed the Kadogo economy. What is the Kadogo economy? For my non-Kenyans, Kadogo in Kiswahili means small, a small thing, a small thing. So they went and they designed Blue Band and Prestige in sachets. You will not see those in the regular supermarkets. They also have a little Blue Band that's 100 grams. Most of us know that 250 grams. So Unilever, Bidco, all of them, these guys of Onja, all these margarines, went and designed a sachet for the lower income areas and the 100 gram. Then they continued for those of you who live in, who buy in town or who live in upmarket places. In fact, if the more upmarket you go, the sizes change. So like now in certain places, that 250 gram is not available. It's from half a kilo and above. What are they doing? They're using the information they're getting from the market and saying, this segment of the market can only afford 15 shillings. You know, in some of our in our lower income areas, you could even buy toothpaste by the brush, right? So they can only spend 15 shillings, but they'd like to at least have a margarine 2 to 3 times a week. So there's that one that you squeeze. And then when you're done, you can cut it open, spread it on your bread like that. And they would love to have 100 grams every so often. So that's what they did. So what have they done? Their assessment and information has told them that there are multiple stratas in the market. It's the same product, just packaged differently. The glucose manufacturers did the same thing. There's a sachet that's available in the lower income areas. The toothpaste people have even sunk and have a smaller one. So at the end of the day, when they calculated where they were breaking even and they needed additional markets, that's how you do market segmentation. Because then you are able to calculate on this product, I can bring in X. Product B brings me Y. Product C gives me Z. Size A, size Z, X, Y, Z, A, B. Multiple sizes. So you've calculated BEP on the respective prices. You know, this one we will sell volumes. This other one we will sell a few pieces, but when we put everything together, we are good. So that's what it talks about, expanding capacity, because you're looking at what else you can do. If you are still with me and I have not lost you, please put a capacity in the chat. All right. So what we're working to do is to move beyond, because BEP is information that helps us now build our businesses. Tuko pamoja? Are we together? Are we writing so hard that the chat section follow instructions? The word is capacity, not why. Excellent. Good to see everybody's with me. So the practical tool is simply how you write it down. Fantastic. So you remember what the formula is, but these are the things you track. Ask yourselves these questions. What are your monthly fixed costs? Write them somewhere. Your average selling price, your variable cost per product or service, contribution per sale, What is your break-even point? How many sales are you currently making? And what is the gap between your current sales and your break-even? When you know these things, because you're bringing it together, when you have these numbers together, it flips a switch in your mind. You're like, oh, so I've been selling at a loss. Yes, you have. And if you've been selling at a loss, what must you do to reorganize it such that you move into minimum break even? Remember, break even is our minimum line. Before you introduce a new product, whether physical product or a service product, you will have calculated this so that you know the introduction of this service allows me to generate this amount of income, which allows me to gain Y. So when you look at it like that, what you realize is it is break-even point is your absolutely, absolutely powerful tool because it helps you keep your numbers in front of you. We always talk about, oh, market, sell more, but why are we selling more? It's one thing to want to sell more, and it's another thing to understand if I don't sell more, I'm in trouble. And that's what we are calculating. So that's how we put it together. It could be an Excel spreadsheet, it could be a finance program like QuickBooks or any of the ones we use. It could be you having your team track this for you if you have a finance person and give you these numbers on a monthly. These are the numbers you need to be tracking as a business owner. All right. So as we wind this down, these two questions I want to ask you. Do you even know your break-even point? And if not, I hope you go and calculate it. Which are your biggest cost impact centers? Is your pricing sustainable? How many sales do you need each month to break even? And what would you need to change to improve profitability? Sometimes when we face these questions, we hold our heads like this, we're like, it's too much. No, brethren, it's not. If we are going to build transgenerational businesses, we must understand a few things. Their transgenerational businesses will require profit at a point. A transgenerational business will need to grow massively. If we do not have the financial back end for it, then we are in trouble. We don't have a track record, right? It is okay if you're in your testing years. Many of us start by testing an idea, a product, a service. But once you are done testing, generate income. Strive to make profit because we're in business to make profit for many of us to build the kingdom, right? So the absence of profit means we're outside our mandate. Because when you look at the Bible, you who did business made profit, right? So these are the numbers we must understand. If we're going to eventually go for funding later, there is supposed to be a track record. And sometimes your numbers may not be big, but by being able to show what your recurring monthly sales are, the bank is able to tell you, or your funding partner is able to tell you, we can give you up to X. Now, remember when you go to the bank, they do not give you a loan that will, your repayment is more than 55%. Your repayment, they keep it under, usually under about 50% of your monthly revenue. So if you don't know your revenue, you can't. And remember, we need to be able to say these are how many units we sell in this category, in this category, in this category. They all contribute to this global amount. And this is why we want to expand the facility because this is the gap in our capacity to deliver. So you must track your numbers because expansion is not because you feel it's time, but because you have market share you need to conquer and you don't have the capacity to conquer that market share. So for those of us in service business, how do we do that? We must build products that are beyond us. So we don't have to be in every sale. If I have to be in every product, then the limit is my capacity and my number of hours. So I could increase our capacity at AMC by bringing on more peers like us or by designing products that people can actually use without direct intervention from us. So you have to begin to think beyond where you are. If your BEP is telling you you're in loss, spend time figuring out how to be in profit, because profit is why we're here. So many of us focus on revenue, but wise business owners focus on sustainability, because revenue is activity, profit creates options. So we must have profit. And when we understand our break-even point, then we can move from hoping the business works to knowing what it takes to make it work. And for some of us, when we discover what it takes, we will walk away, go back into employment, and that is okay. If you are in employment, of course, you're already tracking these numbers for the company that you work for. So when you set up, track them for yourself. The idea of knowing this is to have a direction we are going. So understand your fixed and variable costs, calculate your break-even point regularly, align pricing with sustainability, set your sales targets based on your business realities, not emotions. This is one place we must get emotionless in terms of, we just ask, is it making profit or not? Yes, keep. No, reorganize. All right? And focus on moving forward beyond break even towards profitability. We all must be profitable because our lives must produce not just fruit, but good and lasting fruit. So as we close, we must understand that the goal of a business that can is to build a business that can sustain itself, serve its customers, grow with confidence, and the goal is not just to sell more. Remember, we exist to meet a need, a recurring need that people are willing and able to pay for. That's why we exist. So when you keep that front and center here, and our goal is to be able to sustainably meet that need so that our customers not only are happy, but their lives have been improved. It overrides the need to sell more. The sell more is because there are more people with that need. And it allows us to be able to adjust. So finally, you must understand that growth is intentional. And it becomes even more intentional when you know the numbers that matter. And that is why we've talked about your marketing costs. We've talked about your return on investment. We have talked about your break-even point. Because without those, then you are shooting in the dark, or you're shooting blind, or you're a dude on the dance floor winking at a chick in the dark. It's not going to happen. So do we have questions? I will take a couple of questions as I hand it over to Joe. Do we have questions or reflections? What has stood out for you? What is what can you go back and do? Questions and reflections. Questions and reflections. Thank you, Dorothy. I see you. All right. Hey. Business must sustain itself. Yes. I can see your hand, Miriam. Ask the question.
I think mine is a reflection. I think it's easy to, what's the word? It's easy to theorize, but when it's brought down this simply, I think I'm asking myself, hey, okay, so now you know, what are you doing? Because say, I'll use both cases you gave, employed and self-employed. So for employed, if you're looking at what you're earning, no matter how big or how small it is, whatever you're growing is towards something, unless you're just satisfied earning a salary and you'll be employed forever. So what are we doing to get to this place? And I think now for us, maybe the investment places are the time, the skills, because sometimes we're looking at it like, oh, once I get out of employment, then maybe I'll build this and that. But looking at the resources down, like the same way you've tracked now money, how much are you spending? What is your return? What is the cost in between? How does that now look for someone who's working? Am I wasting time in one space more than I should? Because all those work towards investment and
Mm,
profitability. You're looking at it from a money perspective, can cascade in different spaces to get me now to the financial profitability. Then
mm,
on the aspect of self-employment, again, same thing. The resources I have at hand is the money. What am I spending time on? What am I spending to get to what this profit is? Because I think every little thing, as you've said, can take us further. So like I was just playing with numbers. So for example, what if I put 1,000 bob aside and I was diligent about it? How far would I be? And then translating it now to the investment part. So I think I'm challenged on the part of intentionality. I think that's one thing you just said. It's intentionality. It's not just wishing for it to grow somewhere. So I
mm,
think, yeah, I'm committing to take intentional steps
mm.
to achieve this theoretically, first of all, and financially, realistically, across all the levels. Let me put it that way. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Your comment on 1,000 bucks has brought a couple of thoughts back. We many years ago we used to take our company, our mother, to speak to a group of women in Solai. Solai is in Nakuru, it's an hour beyond Nakuru, so it's about 4 hours from Nairobi. And we challenged them to save 20 shillings a day. 20 shillings a day in a year is 7,200. Now, for most urbanites, 7,200, many of us will go out and eat that one meal as a family. But this 7,200 became a game changer. There was one lady in the community who was always borrowing from everybody. And so the question was, if you don't have a job, what can you begin to sell? And she got beautiful vegetables in her shamba. So she began selling the vegetables in the shamba to and the 20 shillings a day to save. But that diligence, and into what Miriam has talked about, being diligent about what we choose, that diligence over the next 1 year shifted her from being the woman that everybody sees and goes like, Nani is coming, to comfortable, stable, and confident in the community. That is what knowing your numbers does for you. Additionally, I remember listening to one of our financial coaches, and she gave the example of if you can put 5,000 shillings a month, like let's say you're 25, we have a couple of young people in the room. If you begin to put, even her example was 5,000, but it's really any amount. If you put 25,000 shillings away every month into an investment that compounds, and let's say life is stable, and by the time you draw it when you're 70, is that 70? 60. When you draw it at 60 for retirement, you would have put in, I think, about 2.5 million. But because of compounding and leaving it in there, you would come out with 17.5 million. So that 15 would be the result of your compounding. That's really an example of when we choose to be diligent. So, what about our businesses, our lives, the resources we have? Are we choosing to grow intentionally? And for some of us, it feels like it is late. For those of us who are above 40, it is not late. Even if you're in your 60s, it is not late to make a difference in terms of how you think about where you're at. When the older you are, God, by the grace of God, you have wisdom. So, how do you package that wisdom into a product that somebody can actually pay for so that in your retirement days, you still have income coming in? Right? What do you need to publicize? Do you have knowledge that you can? We're in the knowledge economy currently. How do you use that knowledge to generate income? That is why this conversation is so critical. I'm hoping somebody has been smacked with what I need to change things. That is a beautiful starting line. That is why next week we'll be doing the traction lab. Because what's the traction lab? It's where we come and put all our thoughts together and have a one pager, max two pager to live with. So you have all your thoughts here, but you have one page that you can stick on the wall, you can replicate, and you can begin to work on. So hear me well. We don't teach from a place of we have it all together. We teach from a place of, wow, this is what is transformational for us. Let us share it with more people. So let me stop there and hand it over to the original Joe Mukoko from a village that has a name that makes me laugh every time I say it, but he can come and tell us himself. Over to you, Joe.
Shitwitwi is real. Yesterday, one of my friends was there. He was on his way to Bungoma and he stopped in Shitwitwi. It exists. I
Yeah, guys,
know
it's called
Mramba and Sam
Shitwitwi.
will just be laughing their heads off in the call. But yes, Shitwitwi exists, even T-bags. Growth becomes intentional when you know the numbers that matter. You can only grow when you know whether your 1 plus 1 was 2, your 1 plus 1 was 0.75, or your 1 plus 1 was 0. Then it allows you to have corrective action. So thank you for that powerful reminder, Jesubire. And for all of us, thank you for putting in the work. Let's use the template, the tool that Chesubiri has shared, and looking forward to seeing you next week as we do the Traction Lab. Beyond today, as usual, we love feedback. Give us feedback. We will also be running a survey, a quarterly survey, to see how best we can also improve our service to you with some of the suggestions you've been making, and also allowing us to Chesubere, do you say tia tire?
Yeah.
Tia. Allowing us to tier our services to you and make sure that everyone gets to go with what fits them and what will help them sort out their issues. So thank you very much. Kindly give us your feedback. For those of us who've not yet joined the circle, that is our place of congregation beyond Tuesdays. Kindly do so. We share the insights, we share the links, we share things happening in the community. And our members are also free to tell us what's happening in their community in the circle. So make sure you join it. Remember, iron sharpens iron. Humans sharpen humans. So we are humans sharpening each other, and we are catalysts for growth. So let's continue growing together. Thank you very much, Chesubire. For anyone who's missed our past episodes, we normally put up the links in the Circle WhatsApp group. You could go back, see one of the episodes past, and see what to do about it. Next week, we shall be having our Traction Lab for Q2, and we're talking about from visibility to viability. Reviewing, evaluating, identifying, clarifying, developing, setting, and walking away with the one page, as Chesubiri has said. And we are privileged enough that in the Traction Lab Q2, one of our sponsors and partners, Zurich Consult, will be in the room. Liz Nkuku will be in the room as we continue growing. There is a small fee to it, an investment of 1,500 and USD 12. Yes, we support it on Seller Store. The link is there. You could buy it for you, or you could send it to someone who you feel needs it, and someone who needs beyond visibility. What they are making, as Miriam was saying, must make economic sense. I know we tithe, I know we support, I know we help, but one of the things we do is we are building profitable, scalable, thriving businesses. So let's invest in that profitable, scalable, thriving business. Thank you very much. So looking forward to seeing all of you next week, 6 to 9 p.m. We shall continue sharing the link, and you can also share it with your friends, your partners, your children, and even your parents. There are those of us, our parents are retiring. You could send it to them, come in and get to know how to run the business. We begin cohort 2 of Build Your Digital Business on 16th of July. 12 weeks virtual, it's a virtual event. 12 weeks of virtual class, then we graduate. Cohort 1 is doing amazing things, and so we are looking forward to joining you joining us in cohort 2. We shall be sending out the poster with the costings, so you could join or send it to your community that they could join. The world is in the digital space and it's moving very fast, and it's important for us to be in the right place and to tool our businesses right even as we run. On 25th of July from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., we shall have the Mentee Circle, and here we'll be gathering all of us, plus others who are not in the space today, to just have a time of reflection, fellowship, tea and prayer and networking as we share tips, hacks, as it says, Mentee Circle. So it will be the mentees sharing tips, hacks, peer review, peer lessons. Chisubira and I will just be serving tea and snacks and moving around the room to make sure everyone is talking. So thank you. Looking forward to that. We shall also be sharing a poster to that effect in the coming days. So once again, thank you for being here. Even as we get ready to tire and send the details of how you will join, feel free to engage. You know, the goodness of getting to 50 is that you have no apologies for some of the things you say. Kila mtu atachagua. Okay, everyone will choose tia or tire, where you went to school, and the English you speak. So to our partners, AFI Solutions, Shala Publishers, Regroup, Shala Global, the Cube Innovation Hub, Akiko Stories, Haki Integrated Services, SOA Events Institutes, Aura Essentials, Star Events, Conscious Works Consult, Zurich Consulting Business Support, we say a big thank you to all of you for joining today and for always being here and for putting in the work. We are privileged enough to watch and experience your growth and looking forward to more growth and more scaling even as you move. Allow me to say thank you to our muscles. So to Miss T-Bugs, who keeps us in check, Mr. Kwe, Miss Mimo, Miss Julia, Miss Felicity, Miss Wamboi, thank you very much for running the course with us, even as we continue serving the great world of entrepreneurs. Remember, you could and you can always share the link in your communities, people who you feel will benefit. As we were sharing the last time with Chesubire, we go to spaces at times and we meet someone who came in for only one class, who only came in for one show and was impacted, and they walk up and say, hey, I saw you on the screen. Well, sometimes they expect me to be taller than how I look on the screen, but don't worry, I'm actually tall. So thank you very much. God bless you. May you be rewarded in excess of the sacrifices that you make, and may the seed that you are planting fall on fertile soil. Chesubire.
Yes.
I've given you a blank check. You've been unable to utilize it. So let me withdraw and give you another one. Your parting shot.
You know, I've learned to listen and for instructions, so I didn't know I was supposed to speak anyway. Let's know our numbers. Let's just know our numbers. At the beginning of knowing your numbers, it will feel terrifying, but over time, it will be clarifying. So let's move from terrifying to clarifying by knowing our numbers. Thank you.
I love that. Let's move from terrifying to clarifying. We know our numbers. Growth becomes intentional when you know the numbers that matter. Ladies and gentlemen, looking forward to continue working with you as you build sustainable, profitable, thriving, and scalable enterprises. Have a good evening. Have a good afternoon. Have a good morning. Have a good day. See you next week on Tuesday. My name is Joe Mukoko, signing off from the AMC studios. Thank you. Bye.